Are you confident the electoral votes that you and your fellow Democrats cast today will be accepted by the House of Representatives?
Yeah, Jake, again, respectfully, I want to caution you to apply logical thinking to this ridiculous charade that these Republicans are going through, I guess here somewhere in Harrisburg. They have absolutely no authority to affect the outcome of the Electoral College. No legislator here in Pennsylvania has any authority. I've been stating that as a point of legal fact for months. These 20 electoral votes that were cast today for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will stand, and they will be sworn in as the president and vice president on January 20th. Period. End of sentence.
Period. End of sentence, Brother Shapiro. We'll see you in Washington, D.C. in January.
Does he have the lav mic under the mask when he's doing that?
Yeah.
I don't know if people can't see this. He's doing this with the mask on camera by himself.
Yeah. No, he does. This is what
Shapiro
you
put the
does.
mic under the mask?
That is amazing virtue signaling. Okay. We're a ridiculous charade. We will see you in Washington, D.C. in January, sir. This is called Only Legal Votes Count. And we are in a fight to the very end to make sure that happens. And once that does happen, Donald J. Trump will be sworn in for his second term at noon on the 20th of January. I want to bring in now Boris Epshteyn from the campaign. Boris, people are confused. They're hearing the mainstream media. Is it over? Is this just a charade? Are we wasting our time? Are we just jacking up ratings and you're getting more followers on your Instagram, or is this real? Let's go through and let's talk about Georgia. Georgia today finally relented, buckled to the pressure of the deplorables and said, yes, you're right. We should do a signature match. Let's try Cobb County. How significant is that?
Well, Steve, great to be with you. And I'll tell you, two things can be true at the same time. My Instagram is absolutely blowing up, Boris_Epshteyn, and this is far from over. Both of those things are absolutely true. We continue to battle as you look across the country, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico. The reason the Trump electors voted today in all of these states is because the battle continues. The contest you mentioned in Georgia, now there's going to be a real recount and signature matching in the county. In Wisconsin, a razor thin 4-3 decision that really is a wrongful decision, misusing latches on a technicality, where you had 3 Wisconsin Supreme Court justices laying out that the fact that there are over 220,000 illegal ballots cast in the state of Wisconsin.
So hold on. So right there. There's no longer YouTube. Note to self: you got to change all the stuff. It's no longer baseless because in a dissenting opinion, justices in Wisconsin laid out the 221,000 illegal ballots. Right. No
doubt about it.
And that's in one case.
Opinion,
go ahead. The other, which is more important even.
In the other, the Wisconsin Supreme Court said no two ways about it. Using COVID-19 as a pretense to state that you are indefinitely confined is wrong, and those ballots should not count. And who knows what the total number is across the state? We only know the numbers in Milwaukee and in Dane County, which is where Madison is, and they're staggering. So what is Arizona?
Hold it. Hang on, Boris. Before you leave Wisconsin. Is the campaign, they gave you opportunity, they said, hey, you've got to go case by case, and we got to bring the cases up. Is the campaign prepared to put whatever amount of resources, since you finally got to win, are you prepared to follow up and put whatever amount of resources? Last time I checked, and I'm just reading what I read in the Hill, you've taken in $220 million from the deplorables. I think your board of directors here would like you to apply that cash to a win in Wisconsin. Are you guys going to go case by case in Wisconsin and show where they stole this with illegal votes?
We are absolutely going to fight for every legal ballot in Wisconsin and absolutely going to exhaust every and any option to ensure that illegal ballots are not counted, and specifically under this latest ruling by the Wisconsin Supreme Court, which went the president's favor. So, and if you look at the other ruling, again, so vital for people to read the dissents in this case, 4-3, razor thin. The dissents lay out just how ludicrous the majority is, to try to say that, well, because you didn't bring this up 6 months ago.
Hold on. I want to slow down, Jack. Posobiec was jumping here. Hang on. I want to slow down for 1 second. The audience has to understand on the facts of whether they stole it or not. The majority had no real comment. The 4-3 vote was because they said you should have brought it earlier. To explain what laches is, why is it applicable here, but why is it they're avoiding the topic by really ruling on this?
Laches says that you should have brought this case earlier and you're bringing it too late. It literally makes no sense, because they're saying that you should have brought this case when you knew that there were gatherings in the park to illegally harvest ballots, or when you knew that for some unknown reason clerks were changing ballots, or when you knew that people were not applying to vote by mail or absentee and they were just doing so. So that's what the general context of laches is. Does not make any sense in this case. It was a punt by one of the conservative justices on the court who didn't want to address the issue. And the issue is Wisconsin, the executive branch, the clerks in Wisconsin, ran an illegal election.
Jack, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, Barr. So in the second case, though, you guys did have that win, or at least the Wisconsin GOP had the win. My question is now, following that up, if you have any information, they basically laid out that they said, well, technically that is correct because this indefinite confinement was done incorrectly. They even had one of the Democrat electors, ended up showing up at the state capitol today in Madison, even after she herself had claimed to be indefinitely confined. Well, I can't. I'm just wondering. It's amazing. Maybe she's been cured. I guess she's been cured. So what is the plan now going forward? Because it did seem that they laid out a path that basically said you have to challenge this on a case-by-case basis. Is there a plan in place for that?
Working on it right now. Obviously, the decision came down this morning.
Putting you on the spot, Boris.
I've been on the phone with Jim Trupis. That's right. I'd love to be on the spot. I've been on the phone with Jim Trupis, Ken Chesborough, over our all-star lawyers in Wisconsin who've gotten us to where we are now. And we're putting together a plan because we want to attack both of these cases at the same time, right? You want to use what the court laid out, but you also don't want to take what they said in the second case as dogma, because that's not true. Laches does not apply.
Okay,
the doctrine of laches is a mistake to be used here.
Bernie Carrick just tweeted out, it's happening. He talked about the president preserving all of his rights by putting these electors up today. Explain to the audience what your strategy was, how you executed it for President Trump to keep all his options open for the American people.
This actually goes back historically. If you look at the election of 1960, the first time Hawaii had an election, right after they became a state, there were two slates of electors that were sent to Congress because there was an ongoing contest, just as there is right now going on in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, New Mexico, Nevada, Arizona. And during the time between now, effectively when electors are supposed to vote, and when they're counted, which in this case is January 6th, in 1960, the winner of the Hawaii election flipped. It went from Nixon to Kennedy, and then there were both slates of electors went up to Congress. At the time, Vice President Nixon was the president of the Senate, and he actually took the Kennedy electors because it was not dispositive in the election. The point is that if both slates of electors had not been sent, it wouldn't have mattered that it was flipped. Only the slate of electors that was sent could have been counted. So by doing this work today, by doing their patriotic duty, the Trump electors preserve the rights of President Trump no matter what happens in these contests. And we are confident that across the country, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, President Trump is going to end up prevailing either through the legal front or the legislative front, because we are confident that when you count all the legal ballots, he's the one that won those states.
Okay, we got at the bottom of the hour, we're going to go to Michigan, but I want to get your feedback right now, your input on Dominion Systems, what happened in Antrim County. We got about a minute. How big a deal is that, Boris, since you've been out there in Maricopa dealing with this now for over a month?
The FEC level of error, the error rate accepted is 0.0008%. In Antrim County, the observed error rate is 68%. If that doesn't knock you out of your socks, I don't know what will. And that is Dominion voting systems used across the country. Of course, in Arizona, only used in one county, but guess what? It's Maricopa, by far the largest county, accounting for over 60% of the vote. This is as clear a sign, a statement that we need to do a full recount, a full study of every county where Dominion was used as any can be. We need to get to the bottom of what Dominion was doing with the votes of the American people to preserve our system of government.
Does President Trump have enough time? Is there enough time to set this right? Boris, we got about time.
100%. December 8th came and went. December 14th has come and gone. And now we're on to January 6th and then January 20th and beyond if need be. God bless.
Boris Epshteyn, we're going to get Boris's social media, since it's blowing up. We'll make sure we put it up into the live stream in a hashtag War Room Pandemic. Boris Epshteyn with he's now new star on Instagram and, of course, Parler and Twitter. One of the few guys still on Twitter. Okay, take a short break. We're going to go to Michigan, talk about Dominion voting systems. Next on the War Room.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we're going to go to Brian Kennedy in just a second from the American Strategy Group. Brian's been grinding out in Arizona and Nevada. He's also one of the guys in back of this team that broke the code up in Antrim County and took it out of Buck Rogers and took it out of in this foreign country and just stuck to the facts in front of them, and that's enough to blow people's heads up. Before I do that, I want to go to Wisconsin very briefly. Wisconsin is an object lesson. It shows you where establishment Republicans and grassroots can come together, and when they stick to the program and they do not yield, good things happen. We had a great we caught them stealing out there. You caught them the minority opinion of the overall walks through in detail, and everybody should read it, how they were caught red-handed, dead to rights. The only reason they were outvoted was for this thing called latches, which is said, oh, you should have brought it 6 months ago. They never talked about the merits. We won on the merits. In addition, the separate thing about the indefinitely confined, and hey, Donald Trump will lead the effort to go out there and find each individual that was skiing in Aspen, okay, and then voting. The vote in Wisconsin can be flipped on the ICs. We now got to throw resources. We got to go person by person, and only legal votes count. If you're indefinitely confined, your vote counts, no doubt about it. It's not your fault you're in a nursing home or something like that. But hey, if you're out in Aspen and you're on Facebook laughing at us because somebody ballot harvested you in a park in Madison, doesn't work. That vote doesn't count. That's how Trump's going to win Wisconsin.
Well, not only that, but Matt Brainerd has already scratched the surface of some of this. He's gone through some of the names. Yes. He's got some of the individuals. He even got to the point where he was looking up people's social media, and he was finding that there were people that clearly didn't appear to be indefinitely confined, right? You could see they're posting photos publicly.
They're laughing
at
accounts.
They are.
Maggie, you had a question
and I do,
Jack?
Real quick, though,
yeah.
Before I do that, Maggie, I have to give a shout out. Dan O'Donnell, one of the great patriots up there in Wisconsin. That was all him about that elector and finding out he's got the sources. And this was everybody in Wisconsin coming together. The establishment, Bob Spindell.
The Spindell, Knutson, all of them.
Dan O'Donnell having the goods.
Dan O'Donnell was the guy from on the indefinitely confined.
On the nursing homes, yeah.
Nursing home, amazing.
Well, and the coercion.
The
coercion in the nursing homes. Was he had the whistleblower.
A hero.
We're doing it to Maggie again, aren't we?
Maggie, you got a question?
Well, okay, just to clarify, for the people that are just tuning in and that are freaking out and who are looking at headlines like what's happening behind you on CNN, and they're seeing...
Is that CNN?
That's why
yes,
I
we've got
CNN's
CNN
all...
right here.
I do it to trigger people. They're in the
and
live chat.
They get very triggered.
Yeah.
But so, and then there's
Makes
a
you
lot
tougher.
of people on social media who are seeing headlines like California puts Joe Biden over the 270 electoral college votes. Biden will be the next president of the United States. For people that are seeing these headlines who are freaking out, can you just sort of, I guess, explain why this is not as important? Because we've still got other things in the works.
Our dueling
Yes,
electors.
So the big thing today was dueling electors, right? And I'm sure you saw that. Steve's mentioned it, Boris mentioned it. And Reuters actually had a story on this. The Reuters story, all the way back in October. Reuters really wishes they didn't write this. They're trying to bury this article. But they wrote an explainer. Dueling electors could happen if there is a risk of U.S. vote deadlock. What is a dueling elector? And Boris mentioned this. This has happened before in other cases. He mentioned 1960. It also famously happened in 1876, right? This essentially happens when states are close. There comes to be a discrepancy in the vote, or there are people who are concerned about the discrepancy. Look, you don't have to go to the courts for this thing. This is written into our system. The founders wrote this in for us. That's the reason we have these systems. And this is I'm just reading from Reuters right now. It says this is amazing because they wrote it in the mid-October. So huge credit to whoever wrote this at Reuters. States with close contests between Trump and Biden could produce competing slates of electors. The risk of this is heightening is in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, which have Democrat governors and Republican state legislatures. It essentially comes down to.
But all 6 states, people should know:
Right,
Arizona, Nevada, New Mexico, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and yes, even Michigan. Although some controversy about Michigan,
right? And so
all sent dueling electors.
So this is Reuters basically saying prior to that hey, we could have a situation like this.
Yeah.
It was even bigger, right? It ended up being bigger than what Reuters predicted. But Reuters was close, and I'm going to give him credit for that. But it says, chambers of Congress could elect the same slate of electors, could accept, but the chambers could also split, which is more likely if the Republicans retain control of the Senate and Democrats hold on to their House majority. If they cannot agree on a set of electors, the country will find itself in uncharted territory.
We're in uncharted territory right now, but I got to tell you, Donald Trump is committed to holding the line and only legal votes count. When we get down to having a legal vote count, then this thing will be over. Then we'll wrap it up. Okay, I want to go to Brian Kennedy. Brian, you've been at the forefront in these states looking at all this different madness about illegal ballots, but you've principally also been one of the organizers of the cyber team that's gone in and looked in Antrim, Michigan. Tell us what happened and what's the results. What's your takeaway when you read that report?
Yeah, no, I think Boris summarized it pretty well. The error rate is supposed to be, 0.0008. 1 out of every 250,000 votes there could be some error, but beyond that, any kind of error rate shows that there's something fundamentally flawed with the system. In Antrim County, you have a 68% error rate. And what happens when there's an error? An error goes from being a vote cast to then a vote adjudicated. And so once the vote goes into an adjudicated pile within the voting system, a human being has to step in and decide where to put the adjudicated vote. Well, that opens up the door to have all sorts of human interaction with the vote totals. And I think what you're going to see both in Michigan as a whole, but also around the country where Dominion voting systems were used, is when you have these very high error rates and then adjudication, you're going to have vote manipulation. In Antrim County, it's 68%. They believe in Fulton County, Georgia, that number is as high as 90%, which would be phenomenal. And the authenticity of our vote system then is really, really called into question.
But Brian, hang on for a second. This is what doesn't make sense. What you're saying is essentially this voting system is supposed to be a tabulator, supposed to tabulate quickly, quicker than the human mind and human hand. But then when you start adjudicating, if you got this problem in the software, it becomes a calculator, and as a calculator, that's not what it's set up to do. How can it be this far off? How could this not be actually what the system is set up to do, which is just tabulate but now you look at it, it's actually calculating,
Well-
and that's why you have these huge. How it seems, even if they were trying to do it, that's kind of heavy-handed, isn't it?
Well, the analysts say that people who have software experts who have looked at this think that in fact these errors are built into the system that would lead you to be able to do the adjudication later. Now, okay, sure, that happened. But one of the key things in Antrim County, and I think you're going to find this throughout the Dominion voting system.
Hold it. Hang on. We have breaking news. Did Bill Barr just send in his letter of resignation? Is that what this is? Is Bill Barr? I think I'm looking at Deputy Attorney General Jeff Rose, now standing would become acting Attorney General. You got to be on it, guys. That's where you're in the war room, Maggie.
I'm trolling Twitter, and I did not see this.
I think
you've got insider scoop texting you.
Wait,
right now.
wasn't there something like that a little while? Wait.
Just he's
No,
leaving.
President just tweeted.
Oh,
President
wow.
just tweeted. Yeah.
Bill Barr.
Yeah, President just tweeted.
The
Yep.
war room's got a scalp. Okay, like in the old days.
Wow.
So, Brian Kennedy, how do you respond to the fact that Bill Barr is leaving before Christmas?
Politically speaking, by the way, we have
spend-
to add,
to spend-
politically
to-
speaking,
to
we've
spend-
got
to
one of
spend-
those.
It's a figure of speech that we have a scalp. It's a term of art in newspaper land.
Now we. Well,
He's going to spend more time with
I
his
hope that-
family.
Look, Bill,
Yes,
well,
sir.
it's Christmas time after all. But Bill Barr is I had such high hopes for Bill Barr to get to the bottom of this. But back to Antrim, one of the big smoking guns that an attorney general should be looking at is that they found deleted adjudication logs and communication logs out of Antrim County, Michigan, meaning whatever record there was of what transpired had been deleted. And so the very logs that would give you some confidence about the system were nowhere to be found. This is the kind of thing an attorney general, the kind of thing a Bill Barr or his FBI or some part of our government should have been getting to the bottom of weeks ago, and it didn't. And as I say, I had high hopes for Bill Barr, but let's hope whoever replaces him gets to the bottom of this. Because if law enforcement actually, in a very transparent way, examines Dominion voting, I think you're going to see a system plagued with both vulnerabilities and the potential for corruption. And I believe that's what's occurred here in 2020. Now, one other thing, Steve.
Yes, sir.
I love Jack Maxey and I love Raheem, but you've really upgraded your in-studio staff with Jack and Maggie.
Wow,
wow. This is really important. This is really important.
It's very important because it's contract renegotiation.
Steve, one thing
time.
you may
That's
not
why-
know, but Brian and I have spent a little time on a boat together.
Yeah.
Just gonna leave it at that.
Okay.
Just gonna leave it at
former
that.
former naval persons. Brian, this thing is so explosive coming out of Michigan. How does that? And the Secretary of State is trying to suppress this so strongly. Where do you think it goes? Do you think we can expand it to the entire state immediately? And do you think this actually can then go to the problems in Maricopa County, the problems in Ware County, Georgia, and Fulton County? Where do you think directionally this is heading, and where do you think it ends?
I think you have to look all the major counties you have to look at, both in Michigan and in the rest of the swing states. It's by going to these counties and using this software that the ability to have manipulation occurred. And if it didn't occur, a thorough forensic analysis of both the system and the paper ballots will reveal all that. And so sunshine and transparency is the thing that every American should want here. Why would a Secretary of State who wants to prove that they had a valid election, why wouldn't they embrace the notion that we do that kind of auditing? Please bring in law enforcement, bring in the best cyber experts. Let's in an open way evaluate what went on. Now, we who have been studying this for the last 6 months, we think there's a problem. I think this problem actually occurred, by the way, 4 years ago. I think they tried this 4 years ago, a variation on this, and weren't able to achieve it. This year, when you have the ability to have all these mail-in ballots and really stuff the ballots on the front end, they were able to pull it off. And so, I think the job you did, by the way, Steve, 4 years ago in getting President Trump elected, I think that was almost thwarted by a similar type of manipulation of the vote. This is not the first time Mayor Giuliani said this morning
and
on the show.
And
this is not the first time that voter fraud occurred.
And in 2018, particularly in California, in the Florida races. Brian, what's your social media contact points? How do people get contact with you?
At Parler, it's at Brian Kennedy, and on Twitter, it's Brian T. Kennedy 1.
Brian, for all the team that you've been helping organize, those guys have been working 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. The nation owes them a vote of gratitude. So please pass along the thoughts and prayers of everybody in this audience. Thank you, sir.
I will.
Bill Barr's history. You know why? The War Room Posse. We're going to be back in a second to talk about it.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, it's official. Bill Barr is gone, okay? And he deserves to be gone. People say he did such a great job in the impeachment. There was nothing to the impeachment. There was nothing to the Mueller investigation. We now know that. This is why President Trump has got to declassify everything this afternoon. Push it out. Just don't give it to Durham. Push it out. We're just starting this process. Barr, people say, did a great job in the impeachment. President Trump's conversation with the head of Ukraine turns out to be perfect. We now know this from the hard drive from hell. Barr should not have been allowed to resign. I think he should have been fired. It was sent a message. And here's why. He actively suppressed the investigation of Biden, so it didn't impact the election, which is ridiculous.
And
go ahead,
if I can jump in.
Yeah, jump in.
We're
going to dare Maggie to jump in.
One thing that really struck me in all this was when the president asked that question. Go back to the timeline, because we're getting the timeline now of the Hunter Biden investigation. When the president asked that question of the president of Ukraine, President Trump's talking to the president of Ukraine, he was asking to investigate Hunter Biden. That means he didn't know, right? Obviously, it means he didn't know. So all of this could have been solved by someone from DOJ going over to all these various entities and say, hey, look, this is already being taken care of. There's no need to go through with all this. Why didn't that happen?
Okay, look.
Why didn't that happen?
Let's give a reality check. This is why Barr's gone. Let's give a reality check. All this is inextricably linked, okay? The Bidens have been compromised, and Jack Posobiec is a naval intelligence officer that speaks perfect Mandarin. Naval intelligence, his focus is the Chinese Communist Party. He knows about their infiltration methodology. It's both the sexual stuff. It's the it's knowing all your secrets.
Christine Fong. That's classic. That's classic Chinese honey trap pot.
As Miles Guo has taught us, it's BGY, right? You got the blue, the gold, the yellow, and the key is the money and the sex.
About BGY?
Yeah, BGY. That's why I brought it to the West. BGY. So, and so Barr and Ray got the hard drive from hell in December of 2019. It takes you. Ask Jack Maxey. Or Bob Costello, or Bob Costello's son who went through this. It takes you about all of 30 minutes going through this till you realize the level. Now, it takes you weeks and weeks and weeks to get down to all the details, but you can tell in 30 minutes going through where the wire transfers are and the signed joint venture agreements and all that you've got something that's explosive. In 2019, the entire impeachment fiasco could have been stopped. Barr had full power of that with Ray. All they had to look at this and say, hey, Hunter Biden's up to his ears in Burisma. I'm not a Burisma guy. I've said from day one, Russia's a sideshow and Ukraine's a sideshow to a sideshow. The main thing, the main event, the existential threat is the Chinese Communist Party, and don't take your eye off it. But there's enough Burisma stuff in here. In fact, it's the hard drive from hell. Bob Costello is the one that got the email, I think, to NBC News last week, or somebody got it, he confirmed it, where Hunter's business partner is saying, hey, dude, you missed $400,000 on your tax returns about claiming we made that money. You personally made it. You got to go back and change it. And Hunter's like, okay, it's another spin of the media. He's not under investigation for his taxes. His taxes are a means to get in. He's under
That's
investigation.
his spin. That's Hunter's spin. That's his lawyer speak.
The media bought it and put it up in the headlines.
Of course.
It's money laundering and it's being compromised.
See, this is what media does, is they don't report this. When it's a Democrat, they don't report the scandal. They report the response to the scandal.
Bill Barr sat there, and Christopher Wray should be the next guy that I should see. I'm going to spend some more time with the family starting Christmas Eve. They've allowed a national security crisis.
Let's give Chris Wray a nice Christmas. Should we give him a nice Christmas?
You're a naval intelligence officer. Look at what's happening right now. You have a guy that today, YouTube, it's official, we admit, what the Electoral College did in the state capitals, not that it's going to matter on the 20th of January, but once again, we had another gating event. We're the first to say, yes, the electors, although there are competing and dueling electors, and there's still lawsuits all over, and Wisconsin's coming out and saying it's not baseless. They deal it. In Georgia, they're back in the county. In Michigan, they've got the voting machine. This thing is all over, and it's all hot right now. However, one thing we know for a fact, when you leave the election fraud aside, we have a guy who's sitting there with these electoral votes in his back pocket that is compromised by the Chinese Communist Party. There's not even a doubt about that. And now CNN and all these other guys are starting to pick it up. And when they start going through the hard drive from hell and looking at the facts, not the lies that the intelligence community said, saying it's a Russian disinformation campaign, that's not a mistake. It's not a miscalculation. That is a stone cold lie. This was not a Russian disinformation campaign, and everybody knew it, including the FBI and Barr. Where was Bill Barr on this, and why did he allow Joe Biden to look the American people in the eye and lie to them? Okay? It's outrageous. And now Bill Barr is gone to the only thing is, I don't want to be greedy about this, I wouldn't have let him resign. I would have fired him. But he's gone anyway. And he's got replacements. I don't know if these guys are going to be any better, but I tell you what's going to happen. Biden campaign, get ready to embrace the suck, because you're going to have a special prosecutor. You're going to have a special.
That means that Barr can't appoint a special or he could within the next 9 days.
First off, the president of the United States can appoint it. The point is, Rudy Giuliani has gone through. It's the president of the United States can appoint a special prosecutor.
Do it.
And
do it now.
He's got to do a special prosecutor on two special prosecutors. One on election fraud and voter fraud. The other on the Biden's compromise. Okay, and I got to tell you. This is now time to throw down. The president of the United States who's done such a magnificent job of standing up and fighting. Now's the time to get tough. Declassify all of it. Declassify everything related to the Russian scandal. Brennan and these guys will be outed for the stone cold liars they are. They're incompetent. They missed the rise of China. They missed the infiltration of the Chinese Communist Party. As we go back and look at this, they missed Biden. You're telling me that nobody knew, that nobody in the national security apparatus, Tony Blinken, these guys didn't know what the Bidens were doing with the CCP, how they were monetizing these relationships? You expect me to believe that?
Blinken's in the email.
But it's a number of emails, hundreds of them. I got to tell you, who's going to find out is the special prosecutor. I got a pretty good recommendation. The guy that brought the hard drive forward and did the analysis, Bob Costello. He would get you a couple of 3 indictments pretty quick. Biden's, you're into gun sites. That's a figure of speech. YouTube. Okay. Maggie, you're going to get to talk tomorrow. Maggie Vanden, Jack Posobiec, thanks for coming over. You know Wisconsin better than anybody. Tomorrow morning at 10, keep the faith, hold the line. We're winning.